Just ahead on American Black Journal, an organization that has educated, empowered, and enriched thousands of lives. We'll talk with the founder of Jackets for Jobs, and we'll meet one of her successful clients. Plus, we'll delve into the world of science fiction from an African-American perspective. We have a very interesting show for you, so stay right there. American Black Journal is next.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. Over the past 15 years, Jackets for Jobs Incorporated has helped more than 15,000 low-income individuals obtain employment. The nonprofit organization provides its clients with professional clothing for job interviews and offers training in career skills and employment etiquette. Later this month, Jackets for Jobs will hold a special anniversary celebration featuring fashion designer Tracy Reese as the keynote speaker. Here today to talk about that event and the organization is the founder and CEO, Alison Vaughn. She's joined by one of her success stories, client Angela Williams. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you so much.
So I love when somebody sees a need, a sort of niche in the market somewhere and says, hey, I can fill that, I can fix it. This is a perfect example of that kind of organization.
Exactly. You know, it's kind of the catch-22. In order to get a job, you know, you need to look professional and have a nice suit. But in order to have the suit, you know, to buy it, you buy it. Exactly. Yeah. So that was the catch-22. And so I just saw that need, and you know, 15 years later, we're helping over, you know,
15,000 people. That's not a small number here in the metro area. Tell me about that first year, though, that you did it. Tell me about the first people who came through the door. How did you help
I know.
them?
Well, you know, I started the organization out of a tragic situation, really. I started it because of my half-sister. She was out of my life, and so we hadn't seen each other in 20 years. When we reunited, she told me that she was dying of cancer. 6 months later, she passed away. And so when I was helping with the funeral arrangements, I found out that she was on welfare. And so I said, well, I want to be able to give back to women that are in need. And so I started the organization right out of my apartment. And then I used to be a flight attendant, and I was talking to a flight attendant, and I said, you know what, I've got this great organization, but I can't continue to run it out of my apartment.
Right.
And she said, well, why don't you talk to my minister? So then I went over to Little Rock Baptist Church, Reverend Jim Holly,
sure.
And separate from the church, but using space there. And on the second floor of the church, I started Jackets for Jobs, and then moved over to the Samaritan Center, and then opened up another one, and here it is, 15 years.
And at first, where did you get the clothing that you were helping people get?
I received the clothing just word of mouth, and people started doing clothing drives for us, which was awesome. I was like, wow, people, you know, like, let me get my neighborhood together and do a clothing drive. Let me have my church do a clothing drive. Fraternities, sororities, you know, all started doing clothing drives. And then in 2007, which was such a blessing, we partnered with TJ Maxx.
Okay.
And so TJ Maxx is our main sponsor. They provide the clothing, which are beautiful things. If you ever shop at TJ Maxx, you know how nice the things are.
Sure.
And so they supply the clothes to help our job seekers.
Very good.
Yeah.
Angela, you are one of the clients at Jackets for Jobs. Tell me how you came to the organization, and tell me how you got to where you are now, where you landed a job.
Yes, well, in 2013, I became ill. I also learned that my mom was ill at that time, so me having 4 children, unemployed, I needed to go to the state for help. And after going through the state for help, I was sent through Pain Pulliam job training, and where they sent me to Jacket for Jobs. And Miss Vaughn and her mom, the whole Jacket for Jobs, oh my God, the whole entourage is just beautiful, because they want to make sure you look good and professional for that interview.
Right.
They supplied me with a beautiful outfit for my interview, and I went for an interview in October and landed a job at Sterling Services.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and just the feeling, I would think, of knowing, walking into that job interview knowing, look, I've got not just the skill set that I need to get the job, but I'm not worried about somebody looking at my clothes or thinking badly about me because of the way I look.
Well, I believe when I walked in that interview, my outfit said, you know, I had this job. you know, being professional and going to work for someone professional.
Right.
You want to look apart, and I did that.
Yeah,
day.
yeah. And it's about more than clothes as well. I mean, the etiquette training and things like that also get people ready for that work environment.
Exactly, because we talk about employment etiquette training, resume writing, how to show up on time, how to look professional. We talk about self-esteem, because it's not just showing up. It's the whole package that we talk about, the whole package deal.
Yeah. What do you see from the clients who come in the door? I mean, in terms of what it is they are sort of not getting about, you know, the workplace or the work environment. How do they end up in these situations?
You know, we deal with so many different people, and they all have so many different stories. You know, everyone has a story to tell. Some of the ladies that come to us are women that are victim of domestic violence, and they leave their abuser. You know, the abuser goes to work, and they, as soon as he leaves, and they run to a shelter, and then they come to us and they say, you know, I left all of my belongings behind, and so I'm starting fresh. I need a new suit because the clothes that I have on right now are the only things that I have.
Yeah.
And so it's good to be able to help that person. We work with veterans, you know, men that come right out of the service, and they're trying to, you know, reunite with their family and trying to get it together.
Right.
And so we help the men.
And so it's all. I mean, I should have said that probably at the open. It's for men and women.
Right, exactly. We started with the mission of just working with women, and then people kept saying, well, you know, men need help, help the men out. And so we started, right when we partnered with TJ Maxx in 2007, when we opened up our second location, we started working with men. And so that's a big plus.
Yeah, yeah. Angela, tell me about the job that you have and the environment there and sort of how you're adjusting to it.
Well, I'm in the heart of downtown at the One Detroit building. I work inside of the bistro. Very fast paced. So we do some catering, but we also cater to the public as well too. So I love it because anything that's dealing with food, because I'm a caterer, this is what I love to do.
Right,
you
right.
know? So I've worked with the best chefs. The chef Mike that I'm working with, oh my God, he's just so awesome. And I love the fact that he shares recipes and everything with me. So, you know, just to help better me.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, you mentioned that you have 4 children.
Yes, I
I'm
do.
curious about their reaction to seeing their mom doing what you're doing now.
Oh, wow. I have the most beautiful children in the world. And anything that I do reflects them as well, too. Anything that I can do to help further them, I want to. So just with Mom, just the new attitude that I have, you know, I now have self-respect and, you know, just self-worth.
Sure.
You know, it's just a big difference. You know, ever since I've came into the presence of Ms. Vaughn, my whole life has just changed drastically, you know, and it's for the better, you know. And I appreciate that.
Oh my God, I'm getting ready to start crying. Oh my God, I'm really
no
getting
better
ready.
testament than that.
Oh my God, yeah, that just
Yes.
really brings tears to my eyes, because that's what Jackets for Jobs is all about, is
Right.
helping and empowering people. And for you to say that, it really just says a lot about the organization, and this is just a ministry to me. So to be able to help people, you know, 15 years, I would have never thought. You know, this has been a very fast 15 years.
As I was going to say, I mean, 15 years, you've got this special anniversary celebration coming up. Tell me about
I'm
what
so
will happen
excited.
there.
Yeah, I'm so excited about our 15th anniversary, and we're bringing in native Detroiter Tracy Reese. Anybody knows her from Cass Tech, and she used to be with Perry Ellis, and now she has her own fashion brand. And you know, I think most people know her because she did the beautiful dress for First Lady Michelle Obama at the Detroit National Convention. And then since then, others like Sarah Jessica Parker and Taylor Swift are big fans of her wardrobe.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to bring Tracy Reese in, and that is Thursday, April 23rd at the Charles H. Wright Museum. And so we're looking forward to people coming out and supporting us and just seeing what we're all about, that we've been doing
Well,
for
and
15
of course,
years.
you'll have lots of, I would imagine, lots of the clients there
Yes,
to
exactly.
sort of help you celebrate,
Help me celebrate.
changing their lives.
Exactly, yeah. So we're really looking forward to that anniversary and all that we've done and inspired. So I'm just still trying to hold back the tears. I'm just so, thank you so much for those kind words about building up self-esteem, because that's what it's all about.
And I would imagine you hear that quite a bit.
We
from your
do. We
clients.
keep boxes of tissue at every desk. We keep boxes of tissue because we have people that come back and they give us a hug and they'll show us, you know, their first check stub. and they'll say, look, you know, because of you, look, here's the check stub, I have a job now.
Right,
And
right.
so you can imagine.
That the esteem part of this that Angela was talking about is almost as important as the money.
Exactly, it is, because you're building the inside out, and it's like the Cinderella effect, you know, you
Yes,
just
it is.
turn the whole life around.
Definitely,
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
Yeah. So what's next for you, Angela, do you think?
Well, you know, my goal is to one day have a cooking show.
Yeah? Oh, really?
My own food establishment.
Yeah.
Something, long as it's dealing with food, you know, because that's my God-gift talent,
Yeah.
you know, and it's to feed the soul with love, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Wow.
Oh, I like that. Feed the soul with love. That's
right.
kind of cool, huh?
That's right.
Yeah.
And what do you think is next for Jackets for Jobs in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, I'm a Goldman Sachs scholar, and so, you know, the 10,000 small business
Right,
that,
the small businesses that
right.
they're helping here in Detroit.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
you know, Warren Buffett is the chair of the advisory council, and he always said he would like to invest in Detroit and wants to see businesses grow. And so I was one of the fortunate ones to be accepted into the Goldman Sachs. And so part of our graduation plan, you had to do a 5-year plan and submit a growth plan. And so to answer your question, what do I see from going through the Goldman Sachs program is to extend and open up more offices in the state of Michigan for Jackets for Jobs.
In
like
other
Flint,
cities.
I would like to do Flint and Saginaw, because Flint has really been hard hit, and I know there's a great need in Flint, and so I would like to expand there. So that's part of the growth plan for the next 5 years for Jackets
Very
for
good.
Jobs.
Well, we'll look forward to your 20th anniversary
Yes.
in 5 years.
Yes, I'll be back for the celebrating and talking with you then.
Right. Okay. Well, good luck to you, and good luck to you, Angela. And thank you both for being here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Just ahead on American Black Journal, the connection between science fiction and African American culture. That's next, right after this look at some important moments in Detroit's Black history.
I'm Kim Trent with a look back at African American life in Detroit. This week in 1999, Angelo B. Henderson earned a Pulitzer Prize for his vivid feature reporting in the Wall Street Journal. In 2000, award-winning journalist Tad Talbert was inducted into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. And in 1971, Diana Ross's network special, Diana, aired on ABC TV. It was the first effort for Motown's TV and theatrical division. These are significant events this week in Detroit's Black history, taken from the book On This Day, African American Life in Detroit.
When we think of science fiction, we usually think of fantasies and futuristic settings. Remember the TV shows Star Trek and Twilight Zone. But how much do you know about science fiction's role in African American literature and music? Of course, there's Parliament Funkadelic's Mothership and the sci-fi books by award-winning writer Octavia Butler. Here to help us expand our knowledge of science fiction's connection to the Black experience are sci-fi authors Keith Owens and Cornelius Fortune of Detroit Inc. Publishing. Welcome to Detroit.
Thanks, Dan.
American Black Journal. So let's start off with you guys and your work. Tell me about the books that you're writing, the sci-fi books, and how they fit into this genre.
Well, the book that I have is, the Mayonnaise Murders, and of course we
This
have
is a series. That you've been working
right?
on.
As we have part 2 is out, and we have a function coming up on April 18th at Page's Bookshop. We'll also be talking about Black science fiction, and the whole idea, I think, is basically just the concept of the other is what it is. I mean,
Right.
the Mayonnaise Murders is a book. I was kind of very far out there. Basically, a thing called Mayo Mad, which is used to create, which is a drug, which is used mayonnaise to create. And of course, we have half human, half chicken hybrids, and a whole bunch of the crazy things running around. Which just naturally appear in my head, which tell you something about me. But that's the whole thing about science fiction. You can just stretch your imagination as far, but it also is a commentary on real life things that are going on.
It's that connection to a real life struggle or narrative that makes science fiction work.
Exactly.
Cornelius?
Yes, and one of the things that I enjoy doing is writing science fiction poetry. I've actually had more success doing poetry than doing the science fiction short stories.
Stories.
I mean, although I've had some published, but primarily using verse and meter and things like that is an interesting way of basically connecting the image, I guess, so that you're dealing with the concepts, the science fiction concepts of the future, and more importantly, I think, which people forget, science fiction is not about the future. You see the future.
Right.
It's always about the present.
It's always about
always
now.
a commentary on
Or
what's
the
going on
past,
now,
even.
or the past.
Right.
And one of the things that I'd love to see is someone take a, like an alternate history, and kind of say, well, what would have happened if this didn't happen?
Right.
Like with slavery and things like that. That would be a great novel.
If the Civil War had turned out differently, or
Exactly.
hadn't happened, what would America look like?
And actually, some of the earliest sci-fi has done that. I mean, there were some, I think it's Dumas, I mean, written back as far back in the 1800s, where it was more that's what they call alternate, they call, it wasn't even called sci-fi by that term.
Right.
But they began, African-American writers were writing about alternate realities, about exactly like what you're saying, where if slavery didn't happen, if something had gone the other way, and that's,
right.
And you mentioned Problem Funkadelic was one, because the whole idea is what if, and also just looking beyond, in terms of, things are this way here, how would things be if we went somewhere else?
Right, if we weren't here with our history,
right.
How would
an alternate history.
Be? It seemed like when I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, if black people showed up in science fiction films, it was as the first person to get killed, right? The black guy's going to get it first. We've come a long way, though, in terms of the roles that African Americans play, and in terms of how the stories frame the African American experience.
Right. Well, I think a good example of that is The Matrix. In terms of the storyline, I mean, in the sense that it's not just the black character, or obviously not the first person gets killed off, but also they're just part of the story, and they're in different parts. So it's not just the black guy, or maybe black guy and black woman, but there's all kind of black people in all levels throughout the story, to the point where you're just looking at it as that's the story.
They're not there because they're black.
Because they're black,
they
right?
Just happen to be African Americans in
right.
the same role as another
everyone else, and it more accurately reflects, the world. Whereas this is a multicultural world. So this is what you're looking at. So I think and sci-fi has been at the forefront of that in a lot of ways for a while.
Yeah, I always think of Will Smith in Independence Day as another, that's a goofy movie. I don't think it was that great. But to see him play the protagonist in that movie, that was something that even 10 years before that, you probably would have seen a white actor in that role.
Yeah.
Right.
He's been in several of those.
Yeah.
Even the one with his son, which got panned. I understand.
Earth.
That's right. Yeah.
Something Earth.
Yeah, I can't remember unfortunately, but which tells you right there, right? Really
good.
didn't do too good. But the thing I thought was interesting about it though was that still you had, once again, black folks who were all the lead actors in that, and the fact that once again it wasn't that they were the black actors, it was a black family in a situation in space coming back to Earth, and I think that I hope somebody they hold on to that idea, even if that didn't work out at that time.
Right.
And of course you had M. Night Shyamalan, so I don't know why they keep on giving this guy scripts, so it's like how well is that going to work? Keep making movies, but just the concept of that, of just moving beyond and having just characters throughout that, I think will work real well.
Right.
And I think when we talk about families,
Exactly.
African American families, I think
Right.
one of the best examples of that is Deep Space Nine.
Right.
And with Captain Benjamin Sisko, there's like a whole dichotomy that's going on there in terms of his journey. It takes 7 seasons, and what you have there is his son, his father, and you see that interaction. And again, it's not so much that, hey, look at this black character.
Right.
He's just someone that happens to be black, but there's a lot of things in that series that sort of reflects it. There's commentary, and there's one episode that was just incredible where the staff, not the staff, but the entire cast kind of they were recasted without makeup, and it was like in the 50s, and Benjamin Sisko was a black science fiction writer, and you sort of dealt with that whole story of okay, he had this story that he wanted to print, and they said, no, you can't do that. It's not. And so I think that was just. I thought it was one of the greatest.
Well, and Star Trek was legendary for that sort of conscious depiction of race and racial struggle in America, and it was panned. Largely when it came out by people who resisted the idea that you could have African Americans and white people working together in space and doing these things.
Oh yeah, because they didn't have, because the black roles they had were not step and fetch it roles.
Right.
They were playing, actually, straight serious characters, and they're in Twilight Zone as well. They had episodes where they pushed and they resisted that, and they were way ahead of their time.
Yeah. I'm wondering, as kids, how you guys got interested in writing sci-fi, given that you know, it wasn't an obvious place for African Americans to be working. I mean, what was it about that work that really inspired you?
Well, you know, for me, it was always about imaginative literature. You know, it started with comic books, and from comic books, I started to explore other worlds. You know, in terms of you know, TV, movies, particularly movies. You know, Star Wars obviously is, although that tends to be more space opera than science fiction. So, but it definitely started from there, just reading comics, and I love the, you know, I talk about imagery all the time, but it's the imagery, it's the imagery of space, it's the imagery of the planets, and that just connected with me. One of the earliest, I think, connections I had to science fiction was Doctor Who, and it was on Channel 56.
Sure, yeah.
And it was just, it was the most bizarre, right? It was one of the most bizarre things I'd ever seen. I was like 8 years old and watching this guy with a scarf run around all the planets. And I'm like, I just was enthralled by it. And I said, I wanted more. So it was definitely probably Doctor Who, Star Wars, and comic books that just sort of drew me into that world.
Yeah, I mean, the comic book thing is sort of a parallel sort of story to this. I've always thought that comics did a better job earlier than I think film did of showing that diversity, and there were more African Americans in those roles.
Oh yeah, the graphic novel part. You know, I think just being able to show people, being able to see it, and just like I said, the imagination was much more evident. I think in comic books, you know, very much so. I mean, I think you're right. Very much more than film. They were ahead of that, and I think with me, it wasn't comic books necessarily got me. Although I love comics. I mean, I was probably the only kid in fourth grade who was reading Bullfinch's Mythology, you know. but it was the idea of something being way beyond, because that was from mythology, which is kind of a far leap. But just, you know, I mean, I always loved to read, obviously. But when you start talking about mythology, and then everything there, things that just weren't what you saw, but what was beyond. Something else. The fact that you could create a universe. You know, and I think regular fiction is great, which I love, but science fiction, you can create planets, you can create entire species, create backstory, and I think that it was always fascinating to me, from H.G. Wells, you know, to Jules Verne, to, you know, some of my favorites, where they created an entire universe with its own laws, you know, from nothing. And I think that to me has just been, it just gives you such a wide, you know, wide canvas.
That's the genius of Harry Potter, which is what, for my kids, I think is framing the reading of their childhood, and you know, there's an entire world there that doesn't exist, but that she thought up.
Exactly.
And speaking of another film that could have used a few more diverse characters,
Absolutely.
A lot of black folks in Harry Potter, but we can overlook that. What is it that should be inspiring kids today, though, with science fiction? What can they look around and find that really says, hey, I could be part of that?
I think some of the things we've just mentioned. I mean, in terms of, you know, some of the things that are on movies. I mean, I think they're whether it's The Matrix, although that's the older for them, you know. But I think there's much more to choose from, particularly in movies. Now, I think more. Unfortunately, I'm a reader, but I think more than in movies now than in books. Although you mentioned Harry Potter, you know, which is also, although it's not, it needs to be much more diverse. But there are more things to choose from where you can look at, and there's also a movement, I should say, though, which is very important. And if you know, hashtag we need diverse books, actually, is very much of a link, because there's a movement, particularly among children's literature, to provide more diverse reading for kids, and that includes, you know, sci-fi, fantasy, et cetera. And I think, actually, to direct answer your question, I think that's probably a good place to go, because there is a very strong, conscious movement to provide more diverse literature for younger readers, in recognition of the fact that there's so many, like you said, like with Harry Potter, as good as it is, or other books, they just have not diversified.
Not everything is
there, but there's a lot of literature out there that's great for young readers, that needs to be brought more to the forefront, and there's a push for that. So I think that's where that can go.
Do you see young, sort of aspiring science fiction writers coming up in the African American community right now?
You know, I don't see as many as I would like, although many of us are kind of working under the radar. I know that a few years ago I was nominated for a Rising Award, which is kind of the equivalent of a Hugo or Nebula for poetry, science fiction poetry.
That's a big deal.
And but you know, I looked at all the lists of the winners, and I don't really think there was anyone there that was African American. I just think what we're doing is we're not making a big deal out of the color. We're just doing the work, and but that said, I think that we need to look at not just books, not just television. I mean, there's video games, and there are these great stories that are going on, intricate stories that are told by people of all races. So I think the way to sort of get them interested, because they're already interested,
Right.
you know, let's just say it's okay to do this, okay to produce this, because I think as African Americans, the one thing that they always want to do is put you into protest literature,
Right.
or street literature.
Right.
It's like, no, what if that's not what I'm interested in?
Right.
So why?
What if I just want to tell a good story?
Tell the good
It
story.
doesn't have to have that.
That's right, and use your
That's very
imagination.
important.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for being here, and good luck diversifying this important field.
Honored.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org. And as always, connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. Plus, you can now hear our program on WDET 1019 FM. We'll see you next time.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.